I need a pencil. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing is a total disregard for the things St. Patrick's Day stands for. All this drinking, violence, destruction of property. Are these the things we think of when we think of the Irish?
There's a lot of great stuff that came out of the 90s that still holds up. Shelves upon shelves of perfect alternative rock albums, the golden age of The Simpsons, and one of the most fertile decades for American filmmaking to ever occur. Martin Scorsese kept on churning out classics, David Fincher shrouded multiplexes in nihilistic fog, and a big-chinned nerd turned snappy dialogue and a junk drawer of intertextual mashups into the stuff of legend. Quentin Tarantino's three-gun salute of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Jackie Brown moved the countercultural cinephiles over to the cool kids table, and inspired every VHS hoarding upstart to cram their movies with F-bombs and pop culture references. So began the cottage industry of Tarantino knockoffs. Some were good, some were bad, and a small chorus of exciting voices used these chopped and screwed sensibilities to stand out on their own.
If you hold back anything, I'll kill you. If you bend the truth, or I think you're bending the truth, I'll kill you. If you forget anything, I'll kill you. In fact, you're gonna have to work very hard to stay alive, Nick.
And then someone clogged the toilet with this. But before we talk about the actual movie, I need to give you a little background on the man who made it. Troy Duffy. Troy Duffy is a figure of such unwarranted ego and aggressive self-belief that there's an entire documentary dedicated to just how much of an unconscionable jerk he is.
You can't seem to find a woman with just that very simple thing, who's just a good fucking person.
2003's Overnight follows the first-time writer-director from his days as a caustic Bostonian barkeep to an eye-watering offer from Miramax Films, culminating in what could most kindly be described as a complete implosion.
I hate Keanu Reeves. I think he's a fucking punk. I will never do a movie with him. I think Ethan Hawke is a talentless fool. Because even though they're putting up $250,000, it's chicken feed to them, and look how Jewish they're being about it. Jerry Bruckheimer, con fucking air.
Actors and producers fled the project in droves, studios closed their doors, and still Duffy managed to force the Boondock Saints across the finish line. It went on to become a dude bro staple and a cult hit through strong home rentals and word of mouth.
There's I can tell up when a certain person comes up to me, I know what movie they're going to talk about. It's that kind of movie.
But here's the rub.
That is one big pile of shit.
I don't believe it deserves one scrap of the success it's accrued, because I absolutely hate the Boondock Saints.
I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it.
But why? The Boondock Saints charts the course of two gunslinging brothers on a mission from God to rid Boston of crime. Pursued by the eccentric but brilliant detective Smecker, Connor and Murphy McManus must evade the police, whilst striking at the heart of the criminal underworld. So they were the Blues Brothers if he replaced a timeless soundtrack with butt rock and the worst Irish accents you've ever heard.
What kind of flowers you want at your funeral, you dumb It's the last time I'm gonna see you!
It could be fun, right?
What are you doing?
I just wanted to cuddle.
Cuddle? What a
Oh no. As a constructed work of narrative fiction, from the page to the screen and everything in between, the Boondock Saints is utterly incompetent by whichever metric you'd care to use. Let's start with the fundamentals of filmmaking, and how writer-director Troy Duffy treats each and every technical aspect of the craft with belching contempt. The lighting is flat, devoid of contrast, and near identical from one moment to the next, and there were three unappealing flavours to choose from when it comes to cinematography and shot composition. Just have whoever's talking stand center frame, make the camera move around in a circle because you saw Michael Bay do it, but you don't understand the importance of parallax and character movement in selling a tracking shot, or just scream action and hope the actors accidentally block the scene correctly. As for how it's all stitched together, this has some of the most egregiously bad editing to ever stain a commercially released motion picture. Beyond its arduous attempts to dress a profoundly dumb film in pseudo-intellectual glad rags by showing events out of chronological order, the way cuts and transitions are presented is genuinely laughable. I hope you like cheesy dissolves and bewildering moments where everything just fades to black before jumping to the next scene.
This is no game. If you won't go, we will make you go.
What the hell was that?
All the action beats come smeared in more slow-mo and bodily fluids than a John Woo sex tape, but that's about it as far as flow or dynamism. The rest is just a blur of shot, reverse shot, people firing guns, people also firing guns, that looked dated at the time and seems positively archaic when you hold it up against The Matrix, which came out 5 months later. And I refuse to accept budgetary constraints or inexperience as an excuse.
We're good. Yes, we are.
Do you know what this list of movies have in common? They're all superbly written, directed, and shot theatrical debuts, and they were all made for less money than the Boondock Saints. Top to bottom, this is a film devoid of any stylistic worth whatsoever, and it doesn't even have the forethought to steal an aesthetic from someone else. Which is odd considering the whole thing is such an unapologetic bastardization of vastly superior works. Its attempt at non-sequential storytelling is clearly yoinked straight from the Tarantino playbook. The hotel shootout answers the question, what if a hack fraud made Mission Impossible and the Atlantic City Massacre from The Godfather Part 3 enter into a loveless marriage? And the rest is a joyless pastiche of everything from Desperado to Death Wish. As for the writing, if you were to submit this screenplay for a community college project, you'd be flunked out quicker than you could say hacky sack. The structure is as follows. Detective Smecker arrives at a crime scene and instantly intuits information he couldn't possibly know about what went down. Then he mugs for the camera and explains what happened, before finally, we see the crime play out exactly as Smecker just told us. And they repeat this exact song and dance 4 times.
Kinda makes me feel like river dancing.
Characters aren't introduced organically or with clear, concise exposition. Instead, most of the key players just stroll into a scene, then we're given a freeze frame and a 4-line biography. As someone who has combed through a lot of screenplays, I am flabbergasted at just how poorly formatted, edited, and articulated the shooting script for the Boondock Saints is. For anyone who's ever attended a creative writing class, you'll know this one cardinal rule. Every scene should matter, especially the ones that don't. I'll illustrate my point with a comparison. First, let's look at the now iconic opening of Reservoir Dogs.
Dick, 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 dick. How many dicks is that?
A lot.
The discussion regarding the meaning of like a virgin, pontifications on the hardships of service workers, the tough guy posturing. In a few minutes, you've humanized a table full of terrible people without so much as giving the audience their names. There's even some subtle foreshadowing to Mr. Orange being an undercover cop when he rats on Mr. Pink right here.
Wait a minute. Who didn't throw in?
Mr. Pink.
Mr. Pink.
It's a beloved, important sequence that doesn't really seem like it's about anything. Now let's compare that to the Boondock Saints. Half an hour in, the movie stops dead so Rocco can tell an excruciatingly long racist joke.
You mean to tell me all the are out of America?
This serves no purpose. Shortly after, Rocco shoots a cat. For no reason. The Boondock Saints repeatedly falls back on these failed comedic digressions, and they're all indulgently juvenile, transparent filler. Unless you consider brazen homophobia, racism, and an almost astonishing absence of meaning some sort of anti-political correctness call to arms, there's just nothing here for anyone without a fetish for silenced pistols, S&M Billy Connolly, or Willem Dafoe in drag. Well, obviously there were enough folks with a hankering for some bullshit and bigotry, because 10 years later, Troy Duffy dug deep into his darkest recesses of malice and spite, and squeezed out a sequel. The Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. And what do you know? It's also extremely bad.
These sons of bitches prison fucked us! In the ass! And then they wipe their dicks on our grandma's drapes!
Connor, Murphy, and their retired assassin father are living off the grid in Ireland, until they're framed for murder and forced to return to Boston, where they set out to clear their names and lay waste to the criminal underworld once again.
Hard men! Doing hard shit! And that gives me a hard on! But not in a gay way or anything.
No, of course not.
Yeah, it goes without saying.
I'll try and keep this brief because all this negativity is exhausting. Just about every crippling flaw with the first film is present and accounted for once again. Only this time writer-director Troy Duffy can't blame youth and inexperience for the laundry list of problems here. The utterly convoluted detectives investigate crime / show the whole crime structure returns. The Godfather Part 2 and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels are drunkenly plagiarised with all the plummeting grace of a wooden parachute, and Norman Reedus still needs a pair of gloves and a wheelbarrow to carry his awful Irish accent around.
Anybody hungry? Maybe we should stop at an IHOP.
Shut up!
Then there's the homophobia.
What are you saying? I look gay?
I hope you guys like cock sandwiches, because we'll be eating them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
The racism.
Yeah, well, I don't like words which right in the middle.
And the least convincing fake beards this side of a strip mall Santa. With all that being said, All Saints Day does show signs of improvement, even though they're buried in the furthest recesses of Troy Duffy's ineptitude.
Praise be to Jesus!
The origin story of Il Duce's descent into the world of assassination is so much better than the main plot of either film, I wish they'd just made the whole thing a prequel. Julie Benz and Billy Connolly furiously polish every turd they are handed, and manage to bring some gumption and gravitas to material that absolutely doesn't deserve it.
It is because I am so fucking smart that I make smart people feel like they are retarded.
And there's a sequence that blends a Mexican standoff with a game of Russian roulette. That's the only moment in either film that could be considered genuinely cool. So, I guess that makes me one of the only people alive who'd gladly take the Boondock Saints 2 over the first installment, which is the faintest praise I can give for what is still ostensibly a 1-star piece of rain-sodden sleaze.
Ding dong, motherfucker! Ding dong!
Fucking A.
You said it.
Just how many leaps of bad faith and ironic detachment would you need to make in order to call the Boondock Saints an unqualified example of good filmmaking?
I'm not funny today. I know. I'm having a hard day.
Maybe the shootouts are derivative and poorly shot on purpose, as a rugged comment on the over-sanitized state of American action cinema. Willem Dafoe's character isn't actually a list of homophobic cliches, he's an intelligent satire of problematic queer representation. All of those are honest-to-God justifications I've seen bandied about by folks determined to die on the hill of Troy Duffy's failures, and for the life of me, I cannot find a single reason for this film to have audience scores this high. If you want a cult favourite that channels macho energy through a prism of daddy issues and nihilism, there's Fight Club. In the market for a nasty as hell anti-heroic power fantasy built on one-liners and acidic wit, Heathers was there 11 years earlier. Still in need of that 90s action fix? You've got some of the best pyrotechnic displays caught on camera to keep you going for the foreseeable future. I've made videos about movies I don't like before, and divorced from my analysis, I can usually look back and say, hey, maybe this film just isn't for me. In a few cases, some of their more respectful fans have forced me to reconsider my stance after the fact. So it's with crushing consternation that I say, writing and researching this piece has truly defeated me. What stands as a guilty pleasure to some, and an unsung classic to many, may well be one of the most front-to-back awful features I've ever seen. And so long as its cult status lives on, I'll be completely oblivious as to why. A Billy Connolly on a murderous rampage for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Scared Confusion, and Nicholas Lair-Revere, and a tap-dancing Willem Dafoe for all these amazing folks on Patreon who help support the channel. So what are your thoughts on the Boondock Saints? Do you think it's as bad as I do, or do you think there's genuine merit that I've somehow missed? And what other niche cult classics do you think are wildly overrated? The best way to help the channel is to leave a comment down below, click the like button, and if you could share these videos wherever you can, it all helps our little channel reach more folks. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below, where you can get access to the In Frame Out Film Club, your name in the credits, and entry to our private Discord. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.